There's no limit to my imagination, but there's a limit to how I can act upon my imagination.
He doesn't bark orders. He watches, measures, decides, and the decision sticks. For half a century, he's rewritten how movies feel. Worlds assembled, history reimagined, icons born.
After Jaws, they said no movie will ever make this much money, and I kept saying, but don't you realize that I might make a picture that makes no money?
But under the spectacle lives a quieter talent, finding the one presence that fits, the voice he trusts, the performance that tilts the whole story. He isn't hunting volume, he's tuning resonance.
Sometimes I see things that I had intended to do that I didn't do.
His films travel across eras, yet each holds a center that steadies the storm. Spielberg doesn't just cast skill, he casts weight. And when trust locks in, the craft seems to vanish and the moment edges toward myth.
Only a handful of movies I could watch more than once, but not a lot.
He's worked with many. Only a handful never left his orbit. These are the 6 he keeps above headlines and hype, and why no one else has taken their place. Number 1, Harrison Ford. There are action stars, and then there is the man the camera already believes. To audiences, he's Indiana Jones. To Spielberg, Harrison Ford became a compass, steady, unfussy, brutally dependable. From the first hat-brim tilt to the last bruised grin, Ford gave the adventure form something rarer than swagger, credibility. He bleeds, he groans, he gets back up, and the lens never doubts him. On set, he doesn't campaign for attention. He earns it in the beat between lines and the way a look can move a scene forward without asking permission. Spielberg loves control, but with Ford, he doesn't need to tighten the reins. A nod replaces a paragraph. The stunt runs cleaner because the intention is already loaded in the body. Presence over pyrotechnics, weight over noise. That's why those films feel bigger than their sets. The performance is carrying myth without losing the man inside the jacket. Ford rarely explains himself, on camera or off. He shows up, does the work, leaves the air clearer than he found it. Reliability isn't flashy, but it's the reason Spielberg keeps circling back. When the story needs a North Star, Ford points true. He doesn't steal the frame. He is the frame, and the audience leans forward as if history might actually be under that next layer of dust. Number 2, Tom Hanks. Some directors find stars. Spielberg found a twin. With Tom Hanks, he didn't just hire an actor. He plugged a live wire straight into the emotional core of his films. From Saving Private Ryan to Catch Me If You Can. The Terminal, Bridge of Spies, and The Post. Their partnership isn't built on fanfare. It's built on trust. Hanks has said that when Steven calls, the answer is yes. Not out of flattery, but out of faith. And Spielberg answers back with space. Fewer lectures, more nods. Fewer speeches, more whispers. On set, the directions shrink, the choices deepen. And Hanks finds the truth in the quiet half-beat most actors rush past. Hanks doesn't chase big. He chases true. War, history, moral ambiguity. He holds the center without noise or vanity, grounding scenes so others can blaze without tipping the frame. As Captain Miller, he carries exhaustion like a secret. As Carl Hanratty, he turns dogged patience into pressure. As Ben Bradley, he walks into the newsroom like a lion who doesn't need to roar. The effect is structural, not decorative. He supplies the oxygen the story breathes, consistency, empathy, control, things you can't storyboard but always feel. That's why Spielberg keeps returning when the stakes are personal. Hanks arrives prepared, ego buried, timing exact. He doesn't try to impress the camera, he reassures it. And Spielberg protects that reliability like a power source. At this point, it's more than collaboration. It's fused circuitry, 2 artists completing the same sentence, scene after scene, film after film. Number 3, Mark Rylance. When Mark Rylance showed up, Spielberg didn't get volume, he got voltage. Rylance acts in millimeters. The corner of a smile that doesn't quite commit. The breath that arrives half a beat late. The sentence that refuses a period because the character wouldn't give you one. As Rudolph Abel in Bridge of Spies, he turns 3 words, would it help? Into a philosophy, a pressure valve, a pulse check for the whole film. That's the blueprint, tension without theatrics, warmth without sentiment, choices so small they feel like secrets. Spielberg protects that discipline. He steps back and lets the silence ring. The notes get fewer, the space gets cleaner, and Rylance starts tuning the room like one instrument playing an entire orchestra. Watch how he listens, how he lets other actors push, then simply absorb. You think you're watching a quiet scene. 10 seconds later, you realize your shoulders dropped, because he's been holding you the whole time. In the BFG, he scales that stillness up to storybook size, gentleness with mythic weight. In Ready Player One, he drifts through the frame as Halliday like a memory you can't quite touch, fragile, precise, human. Rylance brings an engineer's mindset to performance, measure, cut, fit, and Spielberg builds the frame to match. Fewer angles, cleaner eye lines, a camera that trusts the micro-move. The result is micro-myth-making, a soft voice that somehow carries the weight of a city, a nation, a lifetime of regret. No grandstanding, no noise, just signal. That's why Spielberg returns to him when the story needs accuracy of feeling. Not flashy, unforgettable. Number 4. Richard Dreyfuss. Before the iconography hardened, before we all knew what a Spielberg shot felt like, there was Richard Dreyfuss, and the feeling that movies could be curious again. With Dreyfuss, Spielberg discovered how fast an ordinary man could tilt into legend if the camera believed him. Not a hero carved in marble, but a hero carved in nerves and breath, a guy in over his head who refuses to look away. That became the early Spielberg rhythm. The extraordinary pounding on the door of the everyday and being invited in. Watch the Ark. In the ocean's teeth, he gives you intellect with a grin that's 2 seconds ahead of fear. The quips don't cancel the dread, they frame it. In the glow of the unknown, he plays obsession without cruelty. Hands shaking, eyes up, a believer who can't explain why belief chose him. Even when the stories lift off the ground, Dreyfuss keeps the souls scuffed. That's the origin spark. Wonder with bite, awe with sweat still on its collar. Spielberg's process shifts around him. Fewer commands, more permission. The camera hangs back half a step and lets Dreyfuss run the emotional experiment in real time. Trial, error, recalibration. You feel spontaneity that's actually built with craft, timing like a drummer, instincts like a street comic, then a hard cut to sincerity. The result is early films that breathe, set pieces wrapped around a stubborn, beating human center. This isn't just the birth of a character type, it's the birth of a temperament. Dreyfuss taught Spielberg that wit and wonder can live in the same frame, that fear can punch and still leave room for a smile, that audiences will follow an imperfect man if he keeps telling the truth. The shot language came later. The heartbeat started here. Number 5. Daniel Day-Lewis. Steven Spielberg is famous for managing chaos, moving parts, moving cameras, moving crowds. With Daniel Day-Lewis, he did something rarer. He let go. Day-Lewis doesn't arrive toward a character. He arrives as the character. Voice, bearing, breath, already solved. The set doesn't push him, it rearranges around him. Spielberg's directing shifts from command to custody. Fewer instructions, more space. A nod replaces a paragraph. The shot list trims itself to protect a single human frequency. What follows is a new tempo for Spielberg. Patience is suspense, restraint is revelation. The raised eyebrow lands harder than artillery. A chair creak carries the weight of policy. Decision happens in the hinge of a hand, not the blast of a speech. You watch the film tighten around stillness, and you realize the drama isn't louder, it's closer. The camera treats Day-Lewis like a historical instrument. Tune the room, quiet the air, capture the note before it fades. Day-Lewis is famously selective, which makes the trust feel even more exacting. Spielberg keeps a respectful distance. Titles instead of first names, silence instead of small talk, because the work asks for ceremony. He isn't surrendering authorship. He's protecting it by refusing to interrupt. The result isn't theatrical grandstanding, but a lived-in authority. Law argued in a whisper, morality weighed between breaths. It's the rare collaboration that doesn't need repetition to become permanent. One role, one film, and a door in Spielberg's craft swings open to a corridor he hadn't fully walked before, where history is staged not by spectacle, but by breath held on purpose. Number 6. Robin Williams. Not every Bond is forged on the screen. Some are forged after wrap, when the day has taken too much and the room feels a size too small. Robin Williams didn't just perform for Spielberg, he restored him. On a production that swallowed time and patience, Williams noticed the fatigue and answered with generosity. Late-night riffs on the phone, 15 minutes of laughter that reset the nervous system, relief you can't schedule. That was his method the crew never credited, medicine disguised as mischief. On camera, he carried the ache of forgotten youth, the weight of time sneaking into a fairy tale. Off camera, he kept the set human. Spielberg loves control. Robin was the one element he allowed to remain unpredictable, the spark in the frame you don't tame because the flame is the point. He'd drift from a run of impressions to a needle-threading moment of honesty, and the air would change, crew shoulders drop, the lens leans in. Everyone remembers why they're here. Williams wasn't chasing polish. He chased aliveness. He could turn a punchline into a lifeline and then land a look that said more about regret than a speech ever could. Spielberg's response wasn't management, it was trust. Make room, protect the spontaneity, catch lightning without closing the jar. Some collaborations measure success in box office. This one measures in pulse. When Spielberg talks about performers who changed him, the conversation circles back to Robin. Not because he was the neatest, but because he was the warmest current running through the work. Some performances echo, some people linger. Williams did both. The wild heart that kept the machine beating and left the room dimmer when he was gone. Spielberg doesn't talk about favorites. He talks about moments, fleeting, fragile, unshakable. Sometimes it's a lifetime of work. Sometimes it's one role that rearranges the room. But in every case, these actors gave him more than performance. They gave him reflection. In their silence, he found timing. In their breath, rhythm. In their presence, gravity. He doesn't cast for noise, he casts for weight, and the ones who carry it, he never lets go. Their names may not sit on every credit of his career, but they are written into the way he tells stories, scene by scene, frame by frame. Who did we miss? Who belongs in Spielberg's inner circle for you? Tell me in the comments. And if you love deep dive film stories like this, subscribe. More director playbooks are on the way.